fastest teams to practice today. Kyle
Casey Kane, we congratulate him, his third career pole.
It's all three Hendrick Motorsports in the front.
There's a few movers and shakers out there.
Carl Edwards free falling for a couple
to victory lane is Joey Logano.
Get the inside line on who's fast and who's last before setting your NASCAR fantasy race team lineup this weekend. This is the Inside Line on MRN.com. Presented by Hercules Tires. Now, here are your fantasy experts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
NASCAR's longest race of the year is now behind us. And boy, what a woodshed whooping it was that Martin Truex Jr. just laid on them boys and girls at the Coke 600 at Charlotte. And Mr. Tyler right here, well, this is Robbie Mays first off, and I'm Tyler, and I laid a whooping on him in fantasy because of it.
You beat me by like 25 points.
No, it was not 25 points.
It may have been. It was something close like that. Let me tell you something. Martin Truex Jr. didn't just take him to the woodshed. He took him to a couple of woodsheds on Sunday night, okay? 92 laps led, 588 miles. Let's put this into perspective. The Coca-Cola 600 is obviously the longest race of the year, 600 miles. All the other races are no more than 500 miles. You throw in the last couple of years we've been doing this overtime stuff, so you'll probably get 515 miles tops. 588 miles out front. That's impressive. No matter, it's historical what he did the other night. So congratulations to him. And those guys, they've been so close so many times this year, and they were finally able to put everything together on Sunday night.
Yeah, and I don't think it changes going into this weekend at Pocono.
No.
The Tricky Triangle. That's where we're going this week, and we're talking fantasy about that each and every week like we do every Friday for 30 minutes. And Martin Truex Jr.'s got a great shot to lead a lot of laps at Pocono. Of course, he was the defending winner of the Axalta We Paint Winners 400, and Truex could easily lead, a lot of laps. He led 97 of the 160 last year. And potentially could be a guy that you have to start on your fantasy team, and that's a little bit of a teaser for coming up. Ryan Ellis joins us on the show today. He's a NASCAR Sprint Cup Series driver part-time for BK Racing, driving the Science Logic Toyota. Plus, we'll pick our teams and our winners. You're watching the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
We'll be right back in just a moment to talk more fantasy racing with Tyler and Robbie here on the Inside Line.
If it's hard to stop or you hear squealing and grinding noises during braking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You'll find the brake parts you need from trusted brands like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermo-Quiet at everyday low prices. Play it safe with brake parts from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices, every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
NASCAR K&N Pro Series East opened up, and it was Todd Gilliland picking up the race win.
This is NASCAR Coast to Coast.
How do you keep it all in perspective? You're a 15-year-old. You got to be able to enjoy things at the age of 15 other than racing.
Yes, my mom makes sure that I keep my grades up. It makes it a lot less stressful to miss school because you can just do it online and then hand it in next day at school. Teachers still don't like me very much because I still have to miss quite a bit of school. They understand it, and they've got my back.
NASCAR Coast to Coast every Wednesday at noon at MRN.com.
Victory Junction was young race driver Adam Petty's dream. He worked toward building a camp where children with serious medical conditions could concentrate on fun and not their illness or disease. When he died tragically, his family and friends around NASCAR made sure that dream came true. Today, Victory Junction is a camp that provides fun, life-changing experiences to children dealing with illnesses and disabilities, all at no cost to the camper. Help us serve more children by visiting victoryjunction.org.
We now return to the Inside Line with Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
We must give a shout-out to Rich Colbreth. And
do we have to?
If any of you know me personally, you know that it pains me dearly to give any compliments to Mr. Richard Colbreth.
You don't like giving compliments to anybody.
Well, Rich, we have 1,052 people in our league, and Mr. Rich, who sits over there, he's a producer. He currently sits 9th in our fantasy point standings, and that's pretty stout. But I must say, and we have to defend ourselves, Robbie, every Friday we make our picks before we see any Goodyear rubber on the track. Rich picks his picks 10 minutes before the green flag, so he sees every single practice.
He cheats.
Every single qualifying, and we stick with our teams all the way through. And I beat him last week by doing that strategy, and I still beat him, and that's bad on his part.
I came
right?
close to beating him last week.
Let's talk tricky triangle fantasy racing going into this weekend. Number one pick for me, and there's no question about it, is Martin Truex Jr. Led 97 of 160 laps the last 1 year ago in this race. Truex is my number one seed heading into the weekend. It should be on your team as well, Robbie.
Yeah, he's on my team. That was a butt kicking last year when he led 97 laps in this race. And you think about it, he's only led in his career Pocono 114. So before last year, he led 11 total laps in 18 starts. Picked up the win last year. He's on my team again this week. He's up 50 cents this week to 26.50. So if you had him last week, hold on to him again this weekend. And if you're wondering about back-to-back wins in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, it's not uncommon for that to happen. Of course, Truex has never done it. He's only got 4 wins in 10 years of racing in the Sprint Cup Series. But it's already happened twice this year. Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards both swept earlier this season. Last year it happened 3 times. Harvick, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano did it. And in 2014 it happened 3 times. Jimmy Johnson, Brad Keselowski, and Kevin Harvick. So winning back-to-back in the Sprint Cup Series is not that uncommon. It doesn't happen as much as it used to back in the day. But Truex is certainly a good option this weekend and could go back-to-back.
When you get on a roll, you get on a roll. And another guy who's on a roll right now, in my opinion, is a guy you did not start last week, but I presume you're probably going to start him this week. And that is
right there.
Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
Yes, he finished second in the Coke 600. And he wasn't as dominant as I thought he would be. I thought Kevin Harvick would lead some of the laps. I didn't think that Martin Truex Jr. would lead
I think a bunch of people thought they would lead some
all
of the
of
laps.
them. But Harvick was still good and obviously was the second best car, and I think he will be one of the best cars this weekend at Pocono. So Kevin Harvick is also on my team. Pretty stout at Pocono. He's just a no-brainer, in my opinion. Second in the fall of 2014, second in this race last year. Misfortune in the fall of last year, but Harvick is good everywhere we go. He must be a start on your team. Pretty much no matter where we go. Maybe not the road courses, but I might even start him at the road courses because he finished second at Watkins Glen last year to Joey Logano.
Yeah, I like the Kevin Harvick pick this weekend. He's never won here before, which is odd, seeing as how as good as he gets around this place, and he doesn't really lead that much, or that hasn't led that many laps in his career. He led 39 last spring before it became the Martin Truex Jr. story. And those two guys lead the league right now as far as laps led. Of course, Martin Truex Jr. is leading in laps led with 809. Kevin Harvick has 688 laps led, and Kyle Busch is third on that list with 679 laps led. But it's the top 4, and you see the graphic on the screen right there. Truex, Harvick, Busch, and Carl Edwards. Those guys have really kind of dominated this year as far as laps led go. And if you look further down at the top 10, Joey Logano's led 114 laps, and it's kind of uncommon this time of year for your 10th highest laps led total to only be in the hundreds.
Didn't you lead a couple in the Coke 600 too?
Yeah.
I like Truex's comment after that. It says, I just wanted to give him a sniff. He said that in the media center anyways. The 4 of the 78's on my team. How about your third on your team?
I'm going back to Chase Elliott again this weekend, and he's up $4.75 right now than when I picked him up earlier this year. So he's not coming off my team anytime soon. I'm just throwing away money. He was very quiet last Sunday night at Charlotte. Of course, compared to Truex, a lot of people were quiet last Sunday night. It's time for him to win. He's a rookie, so I know saying that might be a little premature, but I think the way that they've been running, they've got 4 straight top 10s heading to Pocono this weekend. I think you have to pick Chase Elliott going forward. I think if you have him on your team now, he's only going to go up in price as the season goes on. I know that's a broken record, but I say it every week. If you have him, don't drop him. If you want to pick him up, now's the time to do it because he's only going to get higher as the season goes along.
I'm not sure if he's ready to win yet. I think you have to be at least a top 5 car to win the race, and I don't think that they're a top 5 car yet. I'm just looking back at last week. However, at Dover, they almost sniffed out a win, but they weren't a top 5 car that day. in my opinion. If Jimmy Johnson wouldn't have had the transmission issues, we wouldn't have even talked about Chase Elliott hardly, besides in the back end of the top 10.
But he's putting himself in position to be able to win.
He is.
You know, he's putting himself up there. He's running top 10 consistently now. The top 5s are right around the corner, and I still think it's time for him to get a win.
But one of my favorite quotes from Brad Keselowski is, it doesn't matter how good of a driver you are. If you do not have a top 5 car, you're not going to win a race. And you have to be a top 5 car to win the race.
I've seen Brad Keselowski win races when he wasn't a top 5 car, though.
Well,
so.
if you win on fuel strategy or something like that. Chad Canales has made a living off of that.
Well, Pocono, it could be a fuel mileage race on Sunday afternoon,
yes,
depending on how it works out.
And it was, in the fall, because Kyle Busch ran out of fuel.
And after
Matt
the white
Kenseth
flag.
won the race.
Exactly.
So it definitely could be. The 48 is on my team. That's my third. He's great at Pocono. Of course, he's great everywhere we go, so that's just something that was ridiculous to say. But third best average finish among active drivers, second best driver rating. A little nugget for you, Denny Hamlin has the best driver rating at Pocono. But Johnson is great at this racetrack. Like I said, the second best driver rating, and we tend to go off a driver rating a lot in fantasy racing, so Johnson could be a guy that potentially could win this race this weekend. I'm not sure if he's going to have a dominant car, like, say, a Truex or Harvick might, but he could. And we're going to see that coming up here in practice shortly. So Johnson is on my team. You're fourth on your team, Robbie.
Well, it's funny you said that about Denny Hamlin having the highest driver rating. He has a 16.410 race average finish, which is kind of middle of the pack.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know about that.
He passes cars, apparently.
My fourth driver is Kyle Larson. Pocono being one of his better racetracks. So I thought about this, I think maybe about a month ago. I want to put Kyle Larson on my team for Pocono, maybe for Michigan or maybe for Sonoma coming up here in the next couple of weeks as well. 4 starts at Pocono for Kyle Larson, 1 top 5 finish. That was a 5th in the spring of 2014, 2 top 10s. His average finish in those 4 starts is a 9.0. And I said this a couple of years ago when he first showed up on the Sprint Cup Series. I felt like Pocono was the perfect track for him to get his first career win.
Why?
Because it's so unique, and Kyle Larson has such great car control. He's such a great driver. He's able to adapt really quickly, running on dirt. So I think that Pocono is definitely a place for him. If he were to get his first win, this would be the track to do it. And I'll round out my team with Chris Buescher at $5. First career Sprint Cup Series start, but he does have 4 top 5 finishes and 4 ARCA starts at Pocono.
I almost thought about Ryan Blaney this week, though he's never run at Pocono. Because, of course, the Wood Brothers have never been there. The Xfinity Series has never been there. But Ryan Blaney is kind of one of those guys where he just dropped in price, because he finished 20th at the Coke 600, but yet he had 3 top 10s before that, so he's not really struggling. I mean, he had 1 off week, but he dropped in price, so a guy you could think about, but he's never been to Pocono, so we'll see what he can do. I have A.J. Allmendinger on my team. He finished 7th the last time we were at Pocono. He's in the top half of driver ratings. Allmendinger is running pretty well right now in the 47 car with Tad Geschecter and the JTG Doherty Racing team. Josh Wise is on my team. The reason why is because he's $4.75, and I know he's going to start the race because there's only 40 cars. So that's why I can afford 4 pretty solid guys with Truex, Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, and, of course, A.J. Allmendinger. There's our teams. Ryan Ellis, driver of BK Racing Science Logic Toyota, joins us next here on the Inside Line.
The Inside Line will return in just a moment.
If it's hard to stop or you hear squealing and grinding noises during braking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You'll find the brake parts you need from trusted brands like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermoquiet at everyday low prices. Play it safe with brake parts from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
When the smoke settles, the entertainment never stops.
I feel like experience kind of outweighs youth.
On race weekends, your favorite NASCAR personality is an everyday superhero.
Kyle Busch driving for his life right now.
But when they leave the racetrack, they're just like everyone else.
Our lives are so much different than what people may think they are.
I'm Susie Armstrong. Join me on a daily journey as we discuss the hot topics and engaging personalities of NASCAR Nation. Ned Jarrett's World of Racing, weekdays on the Motor Racing Network.
Looking for a great spot for an affordable beach vacation or the perfect romantic retreat? Let the Plaza Resort and Spa help. A vacation on the world's most famous beach is sure to help you reconnect with the ones you love. Discover the grand tradition of hospitality and service on Daytona Beach. The Plaza Resort and Spa is the perfect choice for any type of getaway. Book online at plazaresortandspa.com or call 1-855-DB-PLAZA. That's 1-855-327-5292.
Now it's back to Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett on the Inside Line.
Again, join the other 1,052 people who play in our NASCAR.com Fantasy Live League by clicking the link below that Robbie just so kindly threw up there with his hands under the desk, but he worked it in there pretty quick.
I use the Force a lot.
Driver of the BK Racing Toyota Science Logic, Ryan Ellis, joins us right now. Part-time in the Sprint Cup Series, but he also runs in the Xfinity Series from time to time, and he will be at Pocono this weekend. Ryan, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. We had you on the show last time talking fantasy racing, and we talked a little bit about your Cup. You're going to make your next Cup start in Indy, right?
Yep. So not a big race at all.
Yeah,
right. Back on the schedule, but no, I mean, we're just hoping to make that one because that one's going to be hard to make. I think. Just a lot of people are probably going to show up for that. You're all fighting for 5 spots. It's never easy.
Yeah, that's tough. And you have 2 Truck Series starts at Pocono, which you're make a start in the Xfinity Series this week. But how unique is Pocono when you go around there? The 3 turns and all that.
It's probably one of the most exciting tracks we go to. It's so wide, especially on restarts. You can get into a lot of trouble going into turn 1. And the trucks, turn 2 is pretty much flat out. I know it's not that way in the Cup cars, but, and turn 3 is really fast. You kind of just let the car take a set and take off from there. But it drives just like a road course because you attack each corner. You don't really float the center like you do at a lot of the ovals. So everybody, before I ever got there, told me that it drove like a road course, and I didn't really believe them because it's only 3 corners, but it's probably the most road course-like track we drive that doesn't have 25 corners in it. So if you like someone that's a good road course guy, then I would put him in this week for sure.
I hear drivers say that Pocono reminds them of a road course a lot, and I'm glad you said that, actually. I think that Pocono is probably one of the more unique tracks on the schedule, one of the harder tracks on the schedule. Being a young driver before you went there the first time in the trucks a couple of years ago, talk about how you prepare mentally for a race as difficult as Pocono, knowing that you've got to set up your vehicle for not just one unique corner, not 2 unique corners, but 3 completely different corners.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how you're going to set the car up because you don't really know how closely like a program like iRacing, which so many of us drivers use, really is. Because as good of a job as they do, the tracks change. They get bumps in places they didn't have bumps from one race to the next. They lose grip, gain grip. Goodyear gives us a different tire most of the time, so it's hard for iRacing to keep up. But you can get a good gist of it just by doing a lot of sim racing. I found that iRacing is really similar at Pocono, just like it is at every track. It's just a little bit harder to drive. You can carry a lot more speed in real life. We do so much sim work before we go anywhere, especially if you've never been to a track. So I think there's got to be a couple guys that have never been to this track coming into this weekend in both Xfinity and Cup. So should be pretty exciting.
Well, you mentioned road course racers. AJ Allmendinger's on my team. I'm just going to throw that out there. He's a pretty stout road course racer. Who do you got on your team this week, Ryan? And maybe who's your number 1 seed, number 2 seed? Your top 3 picks on your fantasy team this week.
I don't know if there's really much thought process besides just going with who I thought was going to win in the top 2. And I had Kevin Harvick as my P1, Keselowski in there in second spot. And Kyle Larson, I really think will pull it off. I think he had the pole last year, and I think that he's got as good of a chance here as he does anywhere. And I think it's just kind of, any moment we're just going to keep throwing him in there because we know that the first week we pull him out of our fantasy team, he's probably going to win it.
Yeah, right.
And like you guys were saying right before I got on, I didn't even notice that Blaney had dropped so much in fantasy. You kind of have to pick him this week. He's only, $17?
Yeah.
Something?
Yeah.
You definitely got to take Ryan Blaney. Wood Brothers and Penske, they're going to be really fast this week. And I rounded out with Chris Boucher. I'm not sure if he's ever been there before, but I think they got a little bit stronger program right now at the big tracks than BK Racing, and I think they can beat the 55 and the Jay Robinson cars. So I think you probably got to go with Chris Boucher if you're looking for someone to fill out your lineup. But other than that, I really have no idea. It's kind of a toss-up. There's not really someone who's dominated lately there.
Ryan, I've got 3 of the drivers. I've got Harvick, I've got Larson, and I have Buscher on my team. But you said Brad Keselowski. What about Keselowski stands out to you heading into Pocono this weekend?
I just think he's a very aggressive driver. I mean, a couple of years ago, a lot of drivers had problems with him. And at a track that's very similar to a road course, you want someone that's going to attack and someone that's going to dive in on the restarts and be aggressive. Because we've had a lot of, late race cautions here, and it's all about taking advantage of that. Obviously he's got a great team under him. It's just a matter of time before he gets his next one.
Yeah, Keselowski is a guy that I definitely thought about coming into this weekend because if you remember a couple years ago when Junior went on the hot streak at winning at Pocono, Keselowski finished second in, I believe, both of those races, or at least one of them. And the one he almost won, but he had to go up behind Danica Patrick and try to get the debris off the front of the grill because it was getting too hot. So Keselowski definitely knows how to get around Pocono. And the Blaney pick, I'm glad you were listening to that because, yeah, he has dropped in price, but yet his performance really hasn't dropped, has it, Ryan?
No, not at all. Ryan Blaney's, every time you look up, you see him and Chase out there fighting for position, and they're both up towards the top. So, he's one of those guys. I don't know if he'll get a win this year. I think Chase will pull one off this year. Blaney's been very close, but I think, being a single-car team, he's fighting a little bit more teething problems than hopping in the 24, for example. But he'll get there. I think he's a hell of a driver, and he'll get there eventually here.
Ryan, 2 drivers finished in the top 10 in both races last year. One of those guys was Jimmy Johnson. The other one was Matt Kenseth, who actually won the August race last year. Matt Kenseth's season's been up and down. Right now, it seems he's kind of on an up streak. Would you consider putting a Matt Kenseth on your team this weekend, even though he's kind of struggled a little bit so far in 2016?
Yeah, I think, honestly, those 2 are the hardest to leave out of the lineup. You're always going to, want to put Jimmy in, but Kenseth, he won there last year. You always got to go with last year's winner, and Gibbs just hasn't been off in the last 2 years. They've been pretty much on it. So it's definitely hard. There's a lot of great picks up towards the top, obviously. I was going to probably put Kenseth in there, but I just went on 2 feelers, like I said, with Harvick and Keselowski. I didn't even know he finished second there a few years ago, so now I feel a little bit better about my pick. But, I don't know. I could go with any of those 4, really.
Right. One of the things that's pretty unique about at least NASCAR.com Fantasy League that we play is that you can pick your 5 on your team, but yet you don't have to have your winner on your team. This week, who's your winner at the Tricky Triangle, Ryan?
I don't know why, if I'm just hedging my bets, but I picked Carl Edwards. I have no idea. No thought process behind that one again. Just
all right.
He's another super aggressive guy that, I think he's just going to be there at the end, and I figured why put all my chips in on one side? Might as well at least hedge my bets a little bit and try to get Carl out there and get him a win.
Well, didn't you pick Carl Edwards the last time you were on the show, and didn't he win the race?
Did he?
Yeah.
Where was that?
Wasn't that like Texas, right?
Bristol.
Yeah, it was.
It was Bristol or Richmond, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, I think we had Ryan Reed on at Bristol. He picked Carl Edwards.
That's right.
And then Ryan Ellis picked Carl Edwards at Texas, and he won the race too. So
well, there you go, Carl.
So you're picking Carl again. I mean, if you want a winner, you might as well go with Carl because Ryan was right the last time.
Well,
Ryan's always right.
Carl won at Pocono in his first attempt there back in 2005. Yeah. So if you can do that, you can do anything there.
Yeah. Wow. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man. Good luck at Pocono this weekend, and go get him. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, Ryan Ellis, everyone, joining us today on the Inside Line. Coming up again, of course, is practice for the Sprint Cup Series coming up here shortly. What do you think of Carl Edwards' pick?
It's the way the Gibbs is running right now. Any of their cars can win any given week, and I still think if you rank those 4 cars, it's still Kyle obviously at the top, even though he struggled the other night. Carl Edwards would be second on that list. And then I think Matt Kenseth might actually have surpassed Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's disappointed me for
but we mentioned Denny
weeks.
Hamlin driver rating being the highest.
But his 10 race is still pretty low, too. So I think if you rank those 4 cars, it's 18, 19, 20, and then 11.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's definitely the way I would rank them. We'll continue on here on the Inside Line. After the break, we're going to talk our winners, next here on the Inside Line.
Got a question or opinion about your fantasy lineup? Give us a call at 8444-ASK-MRN, and it may get used on next week's show. The Inside Line will return in a moment.
Whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules Tires will get you there, whether you're running on dirt or running a job. Our dependable, high-quality tires are the perfect fit for your needs. For unmatched value, selection, and warranty with industry-leading road hazard protection, there's only one choice: Hercules Tires. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com or call 800-677-9535. Hercules Tires, right on our strength.
Race on over to mrn.creekstonefarms.com now through June 8th and enter our Sizzlin' Steak Sweepstakes, where you can win a gift certificate good for $500 in Creekstone Farms premium Black Angus beef and all-natural Duroc pork. No purchase necessary, open to legal residents of the 50 United States and District of Columbia who are 21 or older at time of entry. If you want America's best Black Angus beef ribeyes, fillets, all-natural pork tenderloins, baby back ribs, and more, you've got the green light. Go to mrn.creekstonefarms.com and enter today.
Race fans, you know there's nothing like the power, excitement, and sounds of NASCAR. Ever wonder what it would be like to strap yourself in the seat of an authentic NASCAR race car? You can do it at the Richard Petty Driving Experience. Ride along or drive yourself at one of 15 tracks nationwide. Call 1-800-237-3889 or visit online at drivepetty.com. Richard Petty Driving Experience. It's authentic NASCAR entertainment. Call 1-800-237-3889 or visit drivepetty.com to reserve your experience.
Welcome back to the Inside Line. Here are your hosts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
I know most of the show we've talked about Martin Truex Jr. Being pretty stout, and what a story that was last week, Robbie, with him and Sherry, and of course Sherry battling cancer, and what they've done, philanthropy-wise, however you say it, philanthropists.
Yeah,
but
with their
with their
charities.
catwalk,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it was such a huge story to see Truex, win that race. Though it might have been not the most exciting race we've seen at Charlotte or the Coke 600, it was still just a cool story to see him finally put it all together.
I think you have to look, and we talked about this in the opening segment, you have to look at what he accomplished the other night.
Right.
In the history of the sport, no one has led more laps or more miles in one race than what he did, and no one's led more laps in that race than what he did. So for me, it's not the fact that, he led the bunch of laps. It was how dominant they were and how they were able to adjust on the race car all night long. And that was actually the first time that car owner Barney Vistor had been there for one of their wins, too.
And that was cool to hear from him.
That was cool about that, too.
Yeah. And if you go to MRN.com, listen to one of my pod tracks, Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, they finished second and third. They gave Truex high praises for his, performance. Two past champions giving high praise for a very well done performance at Charlotte. So our winners, let me just go out and say I'm going to take Truex as my winner. I don't know if I stole that one from you. I don't think I did. I think you were going another route, but
I figured you were going to take the 78.
Truex is for the second week in a row is going to be my winner at Pocono, and I think he gets it done.
Okay. I'm going a little different route. I'm going with Jimmy Johnson this weekend to win at Pocono. Like I mentioned, one of two drivers with top 10s in both races at Pocono in 2015. He's won here 3 times, 19 top 10 finishes. He leads laps here, 738 laps led in 28 career starts. So I like the 48 car back to victory lane this weekend.
All right, the 78, the 48. Ryan Ellis has the 19. I mentioned Ryan Ellis. He's going to be in the inaugural Xfinity Series race, the Pocono Green 250 at 1 p.m. Saturday. You can hear that on MRN. Practice is coming up 11 a.m. Eastern Time today. And then, of course, Sprint Cup Series qualifying at 4 p.m. Then on Sunday, the big race, the Sprint Cup Series Axalta We Paint Winners 400. Hopefully you have a good week. Robbie Mays probably won't, but he might. You never know.
Roll the credits. We're done.
We'll talk to you next week here on the Inside Line.
You've been listening to The Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires. Stream us every Friday on MotorRacingNetwork.com or on the MRN app. The Inside Line is also available on demand at the MRN.com Media Center or download it through iTunes or Stitcher. The Inside Line is a production of the Motor Racing Network.